Welcome back to the 4 as we continue our breaking news coverage of the Oceanside Pier, which, as you can see here, is on fire. This fire broke out about an hour and a half ago, right about the 3 o'clock hour here. It initially came in as a pier fire into our newsroom, and as soon as we launched our helicopter, just as you're looking at this, we were just shocked to see just how fast this fire began to spread and is continuing to be stubborn to fight here at the end of the Oceanside Pier.
Oceanside fire crews arrived quickly with their boats. They used their water cannons to start attacking it, but it quickly became clear that they were going to need more help. And so the Coast Guard came out. They are out there as well with their water cannons. And if you're just joining us, we actually had live on our air about 10 minutes ago, a helicopter do a drop from above. Obviously, when you're on the end of a very long pier, it is tough for crews on the land to get out there. So all the help they can get from the water and from above, very appreciated for sure. But you can see flames still shooting out of that one section of the building, what was the old Ruby's Diner, which is next to the Brine Box restaurant. The Brine Box was open at the time of the fire, but we're not sure exactly where this started. Did it start in that restaurant? Did it start in the old abandoned building? Still not clear, waiting to get answers from fire crews, but obviously their attention at this point, trying to get the flames out more than trying to figure out where it started or how it started.
One of the biggest concerns, though, is knowing that there was a restaurant open for business. Were there employees or customers inside that restaurant at the time that the fire started? And if so, where are those people now? That's information that we are working to gather as we do have crews on the scene right now covering this fire from the land side. But as you can see from the water side, a number of ships are out there spraying water onto the fire, although we have watched this for at least 30 to 40 minutes now, and they still have their hands full. A lot of active flames still, a lot of very dark smoke, and we don't know exactly how far this fire has spread down the pier. As you can see, it really is localized here at the tip of the pier, but with all the smoke blocking any view as to any other damage that the rest of the pier has sustained, that remains unknown. This is a long pier. This pier is over 1,900 feet long, one of the longest on the West Coast. And it's an old one, too. For Oceanside, this is one of the, when you think of Oceanside and you picture that skyline or the water line there, the view of the coast, this is one of the immediate things that you picture is the Oceanside Pier, what a staple it is in this community.
And a wooden pier at that as well, Heather. And you can see underneath the pier, the scaffolding there. They are always working on this pier, trying to improve it, trying to make it better. But this is what now the sixth version of the pier, the original built back in 1888. That one destroyed by a storm. And this pier has really just been at the end of some bad luck over its lifespan. But now this fire, this very, very serious fire, which will without question have long range impacts for what happens out there. But we are hoping that everybody who was in that brine box, the customers, anybody fishing, any tourists who might have been walking along the pier, were able to see what was happening and get out without any injuries.
We are continuing to monitor this live situation. Chopper 8 up and over the scene. It's a little bit of a tight shot here, but when we do give you sort of a wider vantage point of what's happening, there are a number of ships in the water. Oceanside Fire Department busy. They've released one statement right now as they are working to get this fire out, basically advising people just to stay away if you can. They don't certainly want the streets on the other end of the pier blocked. And boats in the water, they need all the space that they can get in order to continue to fight this. They did call in for help, as we mentioned before. Coast Guard also has some ships on scene, and then we did see some aerial drops from firefighting helicopters up above. We saw one so far. There may have been more than one as we've been dipping in and out of our live shot here, but they did seem to get a little bit of some progress made when they were able to make that initial water drop, but they could use several more of those at this point. We may actually see another one unfold here live right here on CBS 8.
Yeah, it looks like he's coming in again to make another drop because that one spot on the top seems to be very stubborn. They're having a really tough time, and there we go now dropping right there. And as we pull out, you can see that's exactly where he was aiming for, that far side of the building where we saw the flames shooting out before. We do have ground crews that are heading up to that scene. But as you can imagine, traffic, a nightmare up in that area. But as soon as we are able to get you some shots from the ground, we will get those to you live here on CBS 8 as well. But you can see now the crews in the water. We saw that helicopter drop just a few moments ago. And it's hard to tell from this angle if those flames are still shooting up out of that one spot or if that drop was able to to finally knock down whatever was happening in that one little area, because that's where the concentration of the flames had been coming up, is in that one spot. It almost looked, Heather, like it was a stairway right there on the side, and now we're looking back in there. No, you can see the flames still coming up out of that one little spot right there. It'll be interesting to know as we get a chance to get some more details what exactly is in that one area that is so stubborn, so tough for those crews to get out, possibly the kitchen area. Maybe there's grease in that area, hard to tell, but they are definitely having a hard time with the flames in that one spot.
It's interesting though, Steve, as I'm watching the smoke here, I see it coming out from the building, but I also see it almost from underneath the pier at the same time. You see the smoke billowing out on both sides underneath the pier, and then in between sort of the crevices of this larger building there. And you're right, it seems to be that one stairwell spot that has been so stubborn, but who knows what's going on in this wooden pier underneath the eaves there and everything. This is definitely a battle.
All right, we will step aside one more time, and we will be joining you back here on the 4 after this. And welcome back to the 4. We are continuing to follow that breaking news out of Oceanside, the fire at the end of the pier. And we have now gotten confirmation from the City of Oceanside that no injuries have been reported as of now. There were employees inside that Brine Box restaurant, but they were able to get out of the restaurant safely. So that is some great news to pass along at this hour. But you can see that effort still going on the pier as crews try to fight it. It looks like now we are at, is that a shot from the end of the pier near where the arena in the amphitheater is? Yeah, so that's the end of the pier. You can see there quite a crowd has gathered down there to try and look and see what is happening at the pier. But it almost appeared, Heather, from what we've seen, a lot of smoke underneath the pier, which could make you wonder if the fire possibly started under the pier and then worked its way up. At this point, obviously, we don't know. We'll have to wait for those crews, but definitely a lot of smoke, not just coming out of the restaurant, but from under the pier as well.
At this point, we do not have any word as to exactly how this fire started. But again, the focus of the fight is the tip of the pier where there's that large building. And inside that large building used to be the Ruby's 50s Diner. A lot of San Diegans have probably eaten there at some point. That's been vacant for quite some time. But what is there, as Steve was mentioning, was that brine box, which was still open for business. But the good news is at this point, it looks like no injuries reported. And hopefully those folks are going to be okay. To get to the other end of the pier, if they had to go ahead and run, for instance, that would take some time. This is a really long pier, over 1,900 feet long. So the other end of the pier where you saw the firefighters in their staging area, they're a little helpless to get onto the pier because obviously the structural damage, the structural integrity of the pier, I should say, would obviously be called into question at this point.
And there is heavy damage, we're being told, not just to the restaurants on the end, but also to the pier as well. The pier has sustained major damage, that coming from the city of Oceanside. So the question now is, how stable is the end of that pier? We can see the boats that were putting out the flames earlier. They were staying back a ways, making sure they didn't drift under the pier just in case it collapsed. But you can see quite a crowd has gathered there in Oceanside at the end of the pier. This is a huge landmark out there. People very concerned about what is happening out there. And we can even see what appears to be an ambulance out there as well. But as we mentioned, we were told by the city that at this point, no injuries have been reported. But you can see those hose lines now as they try to bring the hose all the way down that massive pier so they can try to fight this from the ground as well.
One of the things that they're going to be up against, of course, is the smoke because of onshore flow that'll blow that smoke right onto land. So if you're living anywhere in the North County, you're seeing smoke, maybe you're smelling it and wondering what that is. Well, obviously you can see here what is on fire is the Oceanside Pier. Again, this broke out, we're coming up on about an hour and 45 minutes ago that we first got the calls into our newsroom that firefighters were responding to reports of a fire on the Oceanside Pier. As Steve mentioned, this is a landmark. It's an historic pier, the longest on the West Coast, one of the oldest too as well, built back in the 1800s, but restored and rebuilt multiple times over the years. They've lost sections of it due to storm damage. They've tried to restore and rebuild as much as they could. Back in the 80s was the last time that there was major damage due to a storm. The community gathered money together. They were able to restore the pier. In fact, a lot of the people who contributed to it, they carved their name in the side of the railings there. And as you can see here from the crowd shot that we showed you just a moment ago from Chopper 8, there's a lot of concern in the community, not just that people could have been on the pier. The good news is that we got reports that there are no reports of any injuries, but just watching a landmark like this in your community go up in flames, it's tough to watch. The good news is there are a number of firefighters on the scene. As you can see, aerial drops being made. The Coast Guard was called in to bring in their cutter, which allows for more powerful hoses to fight this from the water side. And of course, the Oceanside Fire Department doing their best to get a handle on this fire.
Yeah, we just saw that other drop there, our third that we've seen just live in our shot since we started at 4 o'clock. But what I've noticed, Heather, is that the attack now from the crews that are in the water doesn't appear to be on the building, but instead on the actual pier itself. And there was one moment there where they were shooting the water up where I actually saw flames coming up out of the pier itself. So without question, there are flames underneath the pier, and they are working to try to prevent that entire pier from collapsing, at least the end there, from all that damage from the flames.
All right, we need to take a short break, but we are going to be back right after this with our continuing coverage of this fire on the Oceanside Pier.